Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. We're going to head to the Big Ten for this one. We've got a big game between Nebraska and Ohio State on Saturday at Ohio State. I'll start with you, Brian. Ohio State, you know, they lose to Penn State 2 weeks ago, and then last week they were in a battle, life and death, with Northwestern. Was that more of a hangover from last week, or are we starting to see some problems with this Ohio State team?
Yeah, the Ohio State offense definitely has some problems. JT Barrett, they're not running him as much as before. I think he may have an injury they're not disclosing. Yeah, Northwestern was on my card last week, and we all talked about that game being too high of a line in that situation. Northwestern's a team on the way up, and, you know, I don't understand this line either. Obviously, we're sitting at around 17 right now in this game. Nebraska's a team that hasn't given up more than 22 points all season long, except for that game against Oregon. They give up 32. In fact, the last games for Nebraska, they've given up 17, 14, 22, 16, and 13 points. And now they're getting 17 points against an offense that's struggling. I think the dog is live here, as they say. And it would not surprise me if this one goes down to the wire.
Preston, what line did you make this at?
I had it at 16 just from a straight power numbers perspective. I actually Northwestern was one of my only wins last week. I had them too, and so I'm not necessarily against a play on Nebraska at all. What impressed me more than anything, this is kind of more the X's and O's of this matchup in the games last week, but Nebraska really played Wisconsin in, you know, a Wisconsin style on the road. Were really physical. They were able to actually limit the run game, force Wisconsin to pass, which I wasn't expecting. When you match up Nebraska and Ohio State, they're kind of similar offenses. They spread it out. They're a little more up-tempo. But Nebraska, they played Wisconsin's game and did it. It went to overtime and did it well. They ultimately lost the game. But if they can take that type of game that Wisconsin used successfully against Ohio State, Northwestern is a little more of a physical team that slows the game down. If they can take that style of football and apply it here, I think getting 17 is the right side, whether my number is just 16 or not. I think the matchup in that regard is really intriguing. I'm not sure. I don't have any inside Nebraska guys. I don't know how they're planning to attack Ohio State. But I think if they play more of a Wisconsin-style game, then they're going to be in this for sure. JT Barrett, they're not running him as much. I don't know if that's because they're just trying to save him, because he has gotten injured in the past, and they have no backup quarterback that's worth anything, really. But he also just doesn't throw the ball well. So if you're not running him, they can just stack the box against the running back, and, you know, if he's not making throws over the top, you're not going to really be able to open it up. So they do have issues, and, you know, I don't know if they're solvable with Barrett's arm. So yeah, Nebraska or nothing for me too. I think I agree there.
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to give a lean to Ohio State here, and I don't think Nebraska can play that type of game 2 weeks in a row. The one thing that I'll point out from Wisconsin last week, we all know, and I'll agree with you guys on the Ohio State offense being sluggish the last couple of weeks. I'll agree with that. But even a sluggish Ohio State offense is more dynamic than Wisconsin's offense. I mean, Wisconsin just lines up and runs a football. Sure. That's all they do. Last week, Wisconsin, going into Saturday, they had on the injury report, there was 8 guys during the week that was banged up. Now, most of them played, but they weren't 100%. You got 8 guys dinged up on defense. That's going to help Nebraska a little bit in that game. And we saw at times, whenever they didn't have success running the football, Nebraska, that Tommy Armstrong, when you got to put it on his shoulders, I just don't trust him throwing the football. And I think the Ohio State defense is still playing well. You know, the Penn State game was a fluke because of the blocked field goal, and we're going to give them a little bit of last week to being after that first loss, you know, just that letdown. I think we see the real Ohio State this week in Nebraska, because I was shocked to see 17. I mean, first glance, I'm like you, oh my God, I got to look at Nebraska plus the points. But the further I dug into it, I leaned to Ohio State here. So you got 2 votes for Nebraska and 1 for Ohio State.
And I just wanted to make a point. It's kind of dangerous to compare the schedules so far, but the 2 best teams in conference that both teams have played has been Northwestern and Wisconsin. Ohio State outscored those 2 teams in regulation by 4. Nebraska outscored them in regulation by 11. I think the points are the way to go.
All right.
I would make a lunch bet with you, but I don't think either one of us needs to.
Lunch? Okay.
Eating an additional lunch.
All right, guys. Hey, if you want to save $10 this weekend, use coupon code ROLL10. That's ROLL10 and then or excuse me, Roll Tide in the number 10. Roll Tide in the number 10. I got to make my own coupon here. And you'll save $10 at Wager Talk. We'll be back with the best bets from the three of us up next at wagertalk.com.